Hello, hello, welcome back to Loki's Librarian. If you are new here, welcome. I am your librarian, Katrina, and on Sundays I do a thing called Books and Booze where I mix up a cocktail while I review a book. It is the last Sunday of the month, meaning it's time for our next president, making this week's book Barack Obama, Conservative, Pragmatist, Progressive by Burton I. Kaufman. The accompanying cocktail, which apparently was specifically created to celebrate the inauguration of the 44th president, is an Obama cocktail. It's 2 ounces of bourbon, 1 ounce of honey, 1 ounce of lemon juice, and 4 mint leaves. So let's do this. Barack Hussein Obama Jr. was born in Honolulu, Hawaii on August 4th, 1961 to Stanley Ann Dunham, who went by Ann, and Barack Hussein Obama Sr. Now, his father abandoned his mother shortly after Obama was born. I don't want to speak ill of a dead man, but I kind of feel like she was an itch he was scratching while he was in Hawaii, which sounds awful, but, well, when you read it, that's kind of very much what it sounds like. That has been muddled. Let's get some ice back in here. So his father abandoned his mother shortly after Obama was born. He was raised first by his mother, then his mother and stepfather in Indonesia, and then by his grandparents in Hawaii. The honey I have had started to solidify, so I had to melt it with, water. On the plus side, it is now very, very not solid. Ooh, on the negative side, I may not have let enough of it. This is going to take a minute. Hold, please. Can melt the rest of that later. Doing the honey first because it is so very viscous. I'm going to use the bourbon and the lemon juice to, strain it out. Plant the rest of this mint and have mint in my garden this year. Nice dark honey, at least. Tastes good. So anyways, the fact of his father being from Kenya would lead to many interesting rumors about Obama during his political career, most famously that he was not a U.S. citizen, but he most certainly was. Hawaii became a state in 1959. I'm pretty sure that citizenship was granted retroactively, so even if he'd been born in 58, he would have been qualified, or he would have been able to be president. He didn't run afoul of any constitutional amendments, right? His mother was a U.S. citizen. She was born in Kansas. So while his father was certainly from Kenya, Obama never sought or obtained Kenyan citizenship. At least there's nothing that I have been able to find or that anybody else has been able to find that has said, why, yes, he absolutely sought Kenyan citizenship. He had dual citizenship. Conflict of interest. Because if that were the case, that absolutely would have been screeched to high heaven. So that didn't exist. 2 ounces of bourbon. Now, arguably, today, he could be said to have dual citizenship with Kenya. As per the Constitution of Kenya, Article 14, a person is a citizen by birth if on the day of that person's birth, whether or not the person is born in Kenya, either the mother or father of the person is a citizen. Now, that might also cause a conflict, except that this particular version of the Kenyan Constitution wasn't adopted until 2010. So he had already been president for a year at that point. And I think it's a specious argument, and there's no proof that he was not ever eligible to be president. That's the word I was looking for, not qualified, eligible. But, people got to cling to their beliefs, and that's just one of them. So, how much I choose? Anyways, he was absolutely eligible to be president. I mean, say what you like about the Democrats. They are preeminently organized, and I don't think they would have put him forth to be a candidate and not done their due diligence to make sure that he was in fact eligible for the position. So that was a lot of smoke and mirrors. I gotta wonder what people were trying to distract us from. My God, this lemon is very juicy, but it's also very uncooperative and going all over the place. So Obama is eligible to be president. That's where we're at. All of that's out of the way for the Obama lovers. So he was born in Hawaii. His mother was a U.S. citizen. He never had Kenyan citizenship. His mother divorced his father, although the legality of their marriage could be debated. Another thing, as Obama Sr. was already married when he married Ann. Now, this is no fault of Ann, all right? I'm certainly not throwing any shade at the woman. Polygamy was legal in Kenya, so he certainly never would have mentioned it because, hey, it's legal where I'm from, and I don't know that she would have thought to ask the question. So it is what it is, right? Regardless, they were legally divorced, so that when Ann met Lolo Sortoro, I'm probably mispronouncing that, as her second husband, she was legally able to marry him. Now, he was from Indonesia, and they married in 1965. And Ann and Obama would join Sortoro in Indonesia, and Obama spent his formative years there. Let me shake this up really quick. Obama spent his formative years in Indonesia, and he attended a variety of local schools from, like, the poorest neighborhoods when they first moved there, and then as the family moved up in, money-making capabilities and status, he would attend the best schools. Ultimately, Anne decided the best schools in Indonesia were not the best schools in the United States, and she sent her son back to Hawaii to live with her parents, his grandparents, and enroll him in the prestigious, I'm going to mispronounce this one, Punahou School. It's a prep academy, and it's very prestigious, very shishi, and that's the school that Obama went to. Now, after graduating high school, he went to Occidental College in Los Angeles for a few years before transferring to Columbia University in New York. And I'm going to put some mint leaves in here for garnish. Doesn't say to, but I'm going to. I feel like that would be a good garnish, so we're going to do it. A mint leaf for garnish. There we go. Why? Because I can. He was unquestionably smart. I mean, no matter where he went, he got good grades, all right? And that includes in Harvard Law School, although that's still a little bit in the future. He did travel between his junior and senior years at Columbia. He visited his mother and half-sister in Jakarta, and friends of his from Occidental College who were from Pakistan, before returning to Columbia to finish out his studies and take a job with Business International Corporation, where he worked for a few years, I think, as a business analyst. Let's try this. It's not bad. It's not bad. And it's a good balancing of flavors. A little on the tart side, but that's the lemon. But the honey balances it out. It's not bad. Now, he eventually became bored with his line of work. He eventually became bored being a business analyst and sought a job with meaning, which is fair, right? I mean, if you don't like what you're doing, find something you will enjoy. Ultimately, find something you'll enjoy. Pick what your values are, right? He didn't want to make rich people richer, at least according to the book. Never mind his own net value now. He didn't want to make rich people richer at the time, so he quit that job and became a community organizer in Chicago, Illinois, working for Jerry Kellman. Now, what the hell is a community organizer? Because believe me, I think that was the big question I had. Is like, what the fuck is a community organizer? What is that? How does that qualify him for anything, right? Well, in his case, it was helping the residents of Altgeld Gardens housing project get the improvements they needed from the city. Now, whether you love or hate the man, this is truly admirable work, all right? Once you get a sense of what it was he was doing, it's like, wow, that actually is kind of impressive. He was literally in the trenches helping those who needed help to navigate the mind-numbing bureaucracy that encroaches upon all governmental organizations and make life living hell for those of us living under the boot heels of that bureaucracy. And those boot heels are pretty fucking harsh at Altgeld Gardens. So he did a good job there. He was good enough that they doubled his salary within 1 year of his starting. I think he went from making $10,000 a year to $20,000 a year. This was back in the 80s, so that's not quite as paltry as it sounds like. But it was, for somebody with an Ivy League education, he certainly could have been earning more doing something for Business International Corporation. Much ado has been made about his connection to Kellman, as Kellman was a disciple of Saul Alinsky, the author of Rules for Radicals. The author seems to believe that Obama never really went the Alinsky route, believing that grassroots had its place, but real change could only be orchestrated in the halls of power, a la politics. And that's obviously the route that Obama went, as after 3 years as a community organizer, he went to Harvard Law School. Now, this is not as out there as it may seem. In addition to his already Ivy League credentials with his attendance at Occidental and Columbia, his father, Obama Sr., was also a Harvard alumnus. Between leaving Chicago and joining Harvard's student body, Obama did go to both Europe and Kenya to visit his various ancestral lands. And while Europe left him cold, in Kenya, he was embraced by his father's family, kind of as a prodigal son comes home and makes good, right? And they loved that he was following his father's footsteps. Right? His father passed away in 1982. They loved that Obama Jr. was going to Harvard, much as his father, Obama Sr., had done. Now, at Harvard, Obama was older than the average student entering the coursework. I believe usually they're around, let me think here, 22, right? If you do 4 years in a regular college and 3 years of law school, no gap years, you're going to go straight from college. You'll be entering law school at about 22. He was 27. So that sort of maturity made him stand out in several ways, good ways. Nothing bad about that, but he had a little more life experience to throw behind, the answers to the questions that were being asked in class. And he quickly became a protege of Harvard's constitutional professor, Lawrence Tribe. And his last year in college, he was the president of Harvard Law Review, which was big news. He was the first African American to cross that threshold. Of Harvard Law Review, not of Harvard itself. They'd been accepting African American students for a while. Obviously, his father went there, not as a lawyer, but still. His father went to Harvard, so it's not like they were new to African Americans or Africans on campus. It's just he was the first to become the president of Harvard Law Review. And that was big news. That was his first splash with nationwide fame, if you will. It was while he was interning at a Chicago law firm between his first and second years that Obama met Michelle Robinson, and the two formed an instant connection, which would ultimately culminate in marriage and 2 children. Now, look, I'm going to pause here for a second. I know it's very popular internet memes to throw out jokes about their relationship, Michelle's femininity, and you may or may not have noticed that I don't do that. I don't attack the first ladies for what their husbands do, because history has shown that more often than not, they're simply along for the ride. Except for Hillary. I mean, there's something seriously off about that lady, and but I am a big fan of the Hillary kill machine conspiracy theory. It's one of my favorites, and I absolutely love it. After Harvard, Obama first entered local politics in Illinois before making the jump to national politics as senator from Illinois in 2004. And his rise to prominence was truly meteoric. I mean, he went from being virtually unknown to presidential nominee in 4 years. I mean, talk about your dark horse candidates. And that's a commentary on the political dark horse, not the color of his skin, you fucking idiots. It is at this point that you gotta wonder about backdoor dealings. Now, hear me out on this. The way that Kaufman describes the build-up to the primaries in 2008 and the caucus votes Hillary and Obama were both campaigning vigorously to get caucus votes to back them for the presidential candidacy, right? Hillary had the votes. Right, she was very much in the lead. 2008 should have been her year to run. And when you consider in 2016 most Democrats who went there actually wanted Bernie Sanders to be the candidate, I genuinely believe that Hillary was told by the Democratic power players of the DNC that if she stepped back in 2008 to support Obama, she would get the unwavering support of the party power players in 2012 if Obama lost 2008, and 2016 if he won 2008. Pure speculation here, right? I mean, I have absolutely no proof of this. It just makes sense. I'm making an educated guess based on the last 3 years of reading about presidential elections and the behind-the-scenes maneuvering that picks the candidates for our country's highest office every 4 years. That tracks with how things went. Now, there is absolutely no question that Obama inherited an absolute shit show from Bush 43. All right, we had the financial meltdown began in 2008. It hit its stride in 2009 on a landslide to rock bottom housing prices in 2010. Trillions of dollars wiped out of existence from retirement funds, housing markets. Everything was awful, right? Car companies were going bankrupt. They were accepting bailouts from the government, and here I'm just going to put my sarcastic pants on. See, the author, like the rest of Obama fan club, seems to think that the Affordable Care Act was a fantastic piece of legislation promising affordable care to everybody, which conflates insurance with actual medical care. Insurance and healthcare are two entirely separate industries, right? They are semi-linked, but they have absolutely nothing to do with each other other than, money. Insurance is the middleman here. The ones who take their cut before paying the doctors, that's the insurance, all right? The doctors are the ones who perform the actual health care. And if insurance doesn't think you actually need the medical care your doctor says that you do, insurance won't pay anything. But they will still keep the money that you paid them to pay your doctor with. Isn't that delightful? And now, in the midst of the worst financial meltdown since 1929, Obama and a complicit Congress passed a law mandating that everyone, most people who had no money left after the 2008 meltdown, must buy this product of the middleman who may or may not deliver on the product you bought and paid for at the demand of the federal government. I will say the spin doctoring from the left was truly astounding on this one, and to a large degree highly effective, because there are still people who think this was the best thing ever. Being forced to buy a product that you may not ever use and which may not be delivered on when you really, really need it. I mean, I don't know, if I thought it was so profoundly important that everyone have insurance against medical catastrophe, I'd incentivize health savings programs, where you receive tax deductions for the amount of money you report in a savings account specifically dedicated for medical expenses. And when viable medical expenses are paid from that account, meaning doctor's bills and prescriptions, not, your latest Amazon wish list, those expenses, the medical bills, are actually tax deductible. That's what I would do. Now, this doesn't force anyone to buy a product they don't want, but gives them motivation to save something for future unexpected expenses of the medical kind. Now, I literally thought of this plan in the 2 minutes it took me to write this paragraph. So why didn't Obama and his cronies come up with something similar? Well, it's easy. It's called crony corporatism. Bush had already authorized the bailout of AIG, making it the largest government-owned insurance agency. Obama was just doing his part to ensure it remained a viable company post-government prop-up. Additionally, they needed the money from all the healthy people who would have chosen not to buy insurance to cover the medical expenses of those who couldn't afford it otherwise, those who were not as healthy and needed the insurance. So we're all being asked to pay for people who... Have you ever seen the show 1,000-Pound Sisters? You're being asked to pay for their medical expenses because they won't stop eating McDonald's. The author tried many times to argue that Obama was conservative in values and pushed the entrepreneurial spirit of America, but really, it felt like the author was just trying to retcon one of the largest expansions of government power since FDR to be a good quality conservative candidate, despite how the ACA expanded the deficit by trillions of dollars in 2 years, more than Bush's entire 8-year presidency. A fact the author fully acknowledges in the book. He goes over how Obama winning the Nobel Peace Prize, and even Obama was not sure how that jived with his expansion of the war in Afghanistan. That's fair. Didn't occur to Obama to just decline the Peace Prize out of, a sense of moral obligation to the fact that he was expanding that war. I mean, I get it. You don't really decline. I mean, you could decline the prize, but who does, right? Although Obama does deserve full marks for taking out Osama bin Laden. Like, unquestionably, that is the biggest ball that Bush dropped in favor of chasing his non-existent WMD in Iraq. And Obama, with his focus, was able to complete the task in 2 years. And that's impressive, and kudos there. It was well done. Obama deserves full praise for that. He set the task, and he made it happen. Kudos, man. You deserve it. Now, beyond the ACA, which was enormously expensive and killing bin Laden, Obama does not appear to have actually done much. I mean, like most presidents who lose the House of Representatives in their midterms, he took that personally, which is dumb because why? But they all take it personally. Like, all presidents are like, oh my God, this is a referendum on how I'm ruling. It was because of that bizarre belief that Republicans actually retained Congress when Republicans actually retained Congress during the midterm elections of 2002, Bush 43 felt that was a green light to go on and invade Iraq because America loved him. He was doing a good job. He could do no wrong. And then he took us down a blind alley because America loved him, in his mind. Which at first they did. I mean, to be fair, his approval ratings were off the charts post 9/11. It was, after Iraq that everything went downhill. Now, Obama, when he lost the House in 2010, decided to push through something like 98 laws during the lame duck session between November of 2010 and January 3rd, 2011, when the incoming Congress seated. And then from there, he ruled by executive order, which is apparently A-OK when Obama does it, but fascist when Trump does it. And vice versa, incidentally. I mean, people who are outraged when Obama did it crow with delight when Trump does the same, and they start screaming about double standards when being called out on it, rather than acknowledging that this is not how the country should be run. In one of the most famous political tracts of all time, Civil Disobedience or Resistance to Civil Government, author Henry David Thoreau made the argument that that government is best which governs least. This is something which I feel all our elected leaders could stand to be reminded of. This book was short. It was 280 pages of text with another 100 pages of notes and indices. It was a very brief overview of Obama's life and political career, and I appreciate its brevity. After some of the monstrous, 800, 900 page tomes I've been reading, I very much appreciate how succinct the author was. But the entire time, I felt like the author was trying to polish a turd and sell it to me as a gold bar. To be perfectly fair, I am heavily biased in this. I was not impressed with Obama when he was president, and I'm not impressed with his post-presidential career. The author, of course, mentions the 2016 election with nary an acknowledgement of the bizarre hypocrisy of Michelle Obama's statement that they go low and we go high. Then the author talks for pages about Obama attacking Trump as a person rather than his policies, and seemed to feel that Obama was justified in doing something. And Obama, as all presidents do, took it as an attack on his legacy when the U.S. elected Trump with a landslide in the Electoral College. I mean, not the popular vote. I'm well aware he lost the popular vote because I had listened to Democrats bitch about it for 4 years. At least not in 2016, but I mean, all those flyover states that Hillary ignored, Trump courted them, and it paid dividends on Election Day. The author talks very briefly about Hillary's unlikability as a candidate without addressing Obama's culpability here. I mean, this is basic armchair high school psychology, right? By attacking Trump rather than the issues, people who were worried about the issues and saw that Trump was at least making an effort to address those issues, saw the Democrats were attacking Trump, and they started taking that personal. Like, if Trump's worried about the issues and so am I, and the Democrats are calling Trump fascist for talking about those issues, they must think I'm a fascist. I'm not a fascist. Fuck those guys. And bam, Trump won in 2016. Didn't help that Hillary called his supporters a basket of deplorables.
You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
In fact, that was probably the nail in the coffin of her campaign because, hey, you're calling me deplorable? Right here, baby. And then history repeated itself in 2024, and it's still repeating itself. I'm spending less and less time on social media because it's really fucking irritating to watch all these high and mighty, full of themselves and the smell of their own farts people talking about how the entire nation turned fascist. Statistically impossible. In fact, the author in this book broadly hints that the Tea Party movements were all racist, which is statistically impossible given the broad scope of the movement. And it's intellectually lazy, which really drives me nuts, to not even consider the very valid concerns they raised, which is exactly why Obama lost ground in his midterm elections and Hillary ultimately lost in 2016. Turns out calling people racist when they're not really offends them, and they tend to vote against you because... Kaufman said multiple times that BLM were purely peaceful protesters.
You're seeing, Laura, what you're seeing behind me is one of multiple locations that have been burning in Kenosha, Wisconsin over the course of the night. I
think we all remember how peaceful they are. He did talk about Obama's alternative to BLM, My Brother's Keeper Alliance. He calls it My Brother's Keeper in the book, but it turns out there was already an organization called that, so now it's My Brother's Keeper Alliance. Which, to be fair, I think is a much better organization. It's more about building communities than tearing them down, in my opinion. I was not looking forward to this book because I was paying attention during the Obama years. I mean, I didn't pay attention during Clinton's years, and I was, a kid during Reagan and Bush 41. I started paying attention during Bush 43, and Obama, I was really paying attention to politics before deciding, let's just burn it all to the ground and start over again. So I pay attention to other people's outrage on social media, so I know what to be irritated by. The outrage, not, what's actually happening, because people are so overblown in their reactions, it's unreal. But I was paying attention during the Obama presidency, and I was not impressed the first time I lived through it. I learned nothing new on the rehash to change my opinions. I mean, he was a middling president who catapulted the national deficit to stratospheric new heights at a time when the nation could not afford any such new debt. But he was and is one hell of a public speaker. That's it for this week. If you liked what you saw, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys next Sunday. Bye.
Spare some change?
Sure.
You didn't put anything in there.
Yes, I did. I put hope in there. Hope. Don't spend it all in one place, Raggy.